I think we'll be good.
I think we'll be good too.
Yeah, we literally just talked about it or talked for an hour about
until
next
Randall
to nothing.
And until you take both Randall and my games.
Yeah,
we've all arrived on the same game.
Yeah,
there's no way that's
the synergy. The synergy of the 3-year anniversary.
As long as it's part of the series.
That's why DJ had to drop out. He was on a different page, man. Yeah. He was thinking of a different game.
He's going to talk about Dishonored. I was trying.
I don't know why. I don't know why that's even funny, but it just was.
Because I was also going to say Dishonored.
I played the Dishonored 2, I think, for like a split second. I was like, this is kind of cool, but
I had to delete Infamous Second Son off of the PS4 to get the update for Elden Ring.
Oh my god!
Because the update was 5 gigs.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey folks.
And we are back as always to talk about some video games, and we're back this week to talk about some video games that somehow have not managed to come up on the podcast in the 3 years that we've been doing this. We're celebrating our 3-year anniversary this week, I guess, if you want to call it that. And yeah, once again, we were maybe going to have DJ in on the mix again, but slipping through the cracks.
Need to mention it
once again.
I knew he was going to say something too.
We got to throw him under the bus once in a while. Well, we were maybe going to see what because he was here for the last anniversary, so I think this will be our first anniversary doing one without him. He was on when I was checking was he not? I was looking at our because I could have sworn the game that I was so what we do anyways.
No, I'm accidentally downloading Google Hangouts.
Well, what we do anyways for our anniversary episodes, or what we've done in the past at least, is just kind of bring up a game that all of us like. Basically, we're just like, how has this not come up on the podcast over the years? Either because it's one of our favorite games, or just something that got lost in the shuffle over the years, where it's like, oh, I actually never talked about this, and thankfully John keeps like a spreadsheet up to date for us on our Google Drive. And to be honest,
because I have a mental illness.
Well, it definitely helps us out, because I was shocked when I went and took a peek, because I know that the game that I'm going to bring up, and I guess I'll get us started here. The game that I'm going to bring up is a game that I know Randall and I are big fans of, and there's like a small part of me, because I know we were kind of like last minute, like, are we doing another anniversary episode this year? Are we going to do one? Are we going to do the same thing we did before? So I was kind of like, okay, and for some reason I was just like, maybe we're going to be on the same wavelength, but I know you and I have beaten this game together, and it's one of my all-time favorite games on the Super Nintendo.
Ooh.
Can't believe it was not on the spreadsheet, but Goof Troop on the Super Nintendo.
Nice.
It's because you've only mentioned it in passing. You haven't.
Yeah, I was like, I know it's come up. Yeah, and this is like, so if you're familiar or if you're not familiar, this is like one of those games that I guess Capcom's more known for like their NES era of their Disney games, but they did make a handful of games on the Super Nintendo as well, and Goof Troop being one of them.
Yeah.
And basically it's like kind of a short and sweet, like top-down Zelda-style game, but more like linear and level-based, if that makes sense. Like there's a little bit of exploration going on. You're like going around like each level is like has its own map. I don't know if there's a map you can actually like pull up and reference, but you can go screen to screen, and like you definitely do a little bit of backtracking, but basically it's like a top-down puzzle game, like with a heavy emphasis on the puzzles. There's a little bit of combat going on, but mostly you're like kicking these blocks around on the ground that have like kind of like Sokoban puzzles in a way. You're just like kicking blocks around and like pushing them into the designated like switch spot. Or
I never thought about that, but you're right. Yeah.
It's basically like just like, just knocking. Yeah. Basically that's the most like dungeons or most levels kind of end with something like that. And they get more and more complicated as the game goes on, to the point where like the last like final level on the pirate ship, I always like feel like, oh, I got this game memorized and I'm breezing through the beginnings. And then when I get to like the final couple puzzles, I'm like, fuck, man, how do you do this thing again? Because I've beaten this game a few times over the years, both with Randall, like I mentioned at the top. I've beaten it with my brother at least once, if not twice.
Nice.
And played it with some of my cousins over the years, like at like holiday gatherings, just like I remember like we would like, because you'd get like a password where it'd be like banana, cherry, gem, and we would like sing the song like banana, cherry, orange, gem to kind of remember the passwords.
Nomenclature.
Because we didn't have any. Yeah, we did. I don't think the game has saving or anything. But anyways, the co-op aspect is what really makes this game special to me. Is because when you're playing single player, you can either pick Max or Goofy if you're not familiar with Goof Troop, and they actually play just slightly differently. But like Goofy moves a little bit slower, but he's a little bit heavier. So like for example, most of your like attacking is basically just picking up barrels in the level and throwing them at enemies. And then a lot of the heavier enemies, Max will have to. He can move a little quicker, but you have to hit the enemies twice with those barrels to take them out, where you have to hit it just once with Goofy. And then the cool mechanic is when you're playing co-op, you can basically like toss the barrels back and forth and like catch them. Like you can basically like raise your hands above your head and like catch the barrels and like pass them back and forth. So you're almost playing like what's not keep away, but what's that? I guess it's keep away or whatever, where you're just like monkey in the middle is the game I was thinking of. But you're like essentially like doing that with these barrels, and like a lot of times there's a limited number of barrels in a room. So if you're not able to kill the enemies right away, you might have to leave the room, reset it, and all the barrels come back or whatever. But you really do, in some cases, you can't just run in there willy-nilly with Max and start chucking barrels around. You got to be a little more thoughtful about what you're doing. But I just really love how co-op, like you have to like kind of communicate the whole time while you're playing co-op, like, hey, get the barrels to Goofy, and then there's just all sorts of like grappling hooks.
Yeah, the grappling hook is amazing.
Making bridges. Yeah, the way the grappling hook works in that game. Why don't you talk a little bit about this one, Randall? I know it's my game here for this anniversary episode, but we both love this one. Yeah,
I'm a massive fan of Goof Troop too. It's awesome. It's probably of those like Sokoban style games, like Adventures of Lolo or Kickle Cubicle or some of those type of games. This is probably my favorite one. Yeah, and I obviously have an affinity for Goof Troop and a Goofy movie and all that stuff too, so that obviously helps. And Capcom could essentially do no wrong, like you had alluded to, in the 8-bit and 16-bit eras, as far as I'm concerned. Although they cared a lot more about Street Fighter by the time something like this came out. So, but Street Fighter's good too, so that's fine. Although Street Fighter 3 is better than 2, but we're not talking about that. So the grappling
4 is better than 3.
Ooh, we might not going to talk about that later. 4 is really
Street
good,
Fighter for another day.
4 is really good, but 3's better. But the parry system's awesome. But the grappling hook in Goof Troop is awesome because not only can you use it to like knock enemies back or collect your bananas or items from long distances, but you can use it as like a bridge. You can use it to make another pathway, and you say, all right, Max, like use your grappling hooks. Since I think if I remember correctly, like both characters can equip an item too, right? At a given time.
Maybe even 2 items.
Maybe
I can't
even
remember
2 to switch between.
For sure. Yeah. Or maybe you can have 2 items when you're on single player, but when you're on multiplayer, each character can only have 1. I can't remember. I know there's something.
Right.
I do remember doing some things where I'm like, no, you carry the hook shot or whatever, or the bell. Like you can actually, there's like literally a bell that you can use to kite enemies over. Yeah. Like, 'cause sometimes you have to like pull them over to like step on a switch to open an area. So then, okay, now I can go in there and start kicking the blocks around. But then, like in some of the areas, you got those like bruiser enemies that turn into like the like kind of beach ball enemies, that like roll up and start like rolling into you and slam into you. But like, they're kind of heavier enemies, and they'll come around and they'll just start kicking those star blocks around that are there for you to solve the puzzles. So they'll like literally like kick them into a corner so you can't use them anymore. So I don't know. I just really love how well the game is designed. And again, like I think I've mentioned, like anytime Zelda comes up on the podcast these days, I couldn't tell you the last time I beat a Zelda game, and I really enjoy them. Like I don't have anything against them, but I just never see them through because they're like 30 to 50 to however God knows how many hours. Yeah. Like Goof Troop is like easily you can beat it in one sitting if you want. Like if you're like, hey, this is our afternoon. Like I know we've mentioned before, Randall and I, like when we would get together and hang out, we were like, we have to beat a video game. And I'm pretty sure we did it in one session on our Goof Troop session. Oh, yeah. It wasn't like, we're chipping away at this for weeks. It's like, 4 or 5, maybe 6 levels. Yeah. And it's just like a great scope, great little, the pixel art's amazing. Oh, yeah. The music's amazing. Like they really captured the energy of, I don't know, you'd really want to take Pete down by the end of the,
always
the pirate level. So it's awesome.
So is it level based or is it just like contiguous? Like, is it like a super like Mario where you have like there are 8 worlds or whatever, but you have to play them like is there a level select at this point?
It's, I believe, I don't think there's a level select. I'm pretty sure it's just linear. Like you kind of beat each, like each level is kind of like its own little very mini overworld, but like very mini.
Like you were saying, you could reload screens.
Yeah, you're kind of like just like you do in a Zelda game where you go like screen to screen and it kind of progresses. But they're like each level is like you get to like a final state. Like there's a boss at the end of each stage and you beat the boss. And the boss battles are usually pretty cool. Like they have a unique, again, especially if you're playing co-op and you're kind of juggling like, oh man, like one of the bosses, there's like these 2 skeletons that start jumping around and throwing their bones start scattering all over the room. So you're trying to like, you just get dodging and passing barrels back and forth.
A Goofy movie bosses where you're fighting the Leaning Tower of Cheese.
I wish
that would be
or
Principal Mazer.
Yeah, Power Line had adventures.
If it had that music, I want to say this predates the movie. I want to say I actually don't know that.
I think it's like I looked it up after you mentioned it. I think it's like the TV show Goof Troop and not.
Yeah, it's definitely based on the show. Yeah. But it's really good stuff. Really fond memories playing it. Like I said, with Randall, with my brother, and I know my brother's an equally big fan. Both of Goof Troop and the game. So it's just awesome stuff. So yeah, I had a backup plan, but I'm glad. I'm hoping I didn't steal your pick this year, Randall, because for some reason I was just like, if we're digging into like our favorites, that one I believe I know stuck with both of us. But
it's a great game, and it's especially like co-op. Play it co-op. I mean, you can play single player, you'll have a good time, but co-op is really where this game shines.
Yeah, it's balanced so well for co-op. It's amazing,
and it's not just a blast. It's not like extremely difficult, but
I was just gonna say
but it's breezy, and it's a puzzle game. There are enemies, but they kind of have set patterns, and you just got you got a drink over on your side stand, and you're just playing a little Goof Troop. It's fun. It's a good time.
It'd be perfect for that, or perfect for like a situation where if you're like playing Randall and like, hey, let me show Fiona like an early game or something, like say if you've got a kid or something to play with, and kind of like, okay, you be Max, I'll be Goofy, so I can take the heavy shots and make sure we're taking down these enemies, and you just run around like a madman as Max, and you're good to go. But
absolutely.
But yeah, why don't I toss it over your way, John, for a game that somehow hasn't managed to come up on your end?
Yeah, as we were saying, it is unbelievable to me that I have never brought this game up. And I feel like I would have back when, early days of the podcast, we're like, all right, well, this is a new game. We got to make sure that we're talking about that and keeping up on that.
Stay relevant. Minimum. Got to stay relevant.
5 new games.
God, yes. Everybody plays, we all play the one game together, and it's,
and then bring 4 more with you just in case. Yeah.
But I am talking about a 3DS game that I played a ton of, and it is Fire Emblem Awakening.
Ooh, let's go.
Is basically the platonic ideal of what a perfect JRPG is in my eyes. And it is a game I have played multiple times over, beaten again and again, and is the title that basically defined what a modern Fire Emblem game is.
Yes.
Because I had played and kind of bounced off the Fire Emblem series, as most people did, based on its brutal difficulty. If you were playing a lot of the earlier titles, and I had played like the Game Boy Advance ones and the GameCube one. And I would play it for like the first couple of missions, and I'd be like, yeah, this is super fun. And then all the characters that I loved would die in the battle, and I'd be like, wow, this game isn't fun anymore. Because
would you like to restart?
Yeah. And it's after you do that as a young boy over and over again, you're like, wow, I don't like this game
anymore. No, it doesn't feel good.
And as I was looking up, Awakening was the swan song, or that they thought this was going to be the last ditch effort of the series, and it was on verge of being canceled as a series, and then it became the cash cow
no doubt
Nintendo.
There's a freaking Fire Emblem mobile game now. That's crazy to think that it caught on that level.
It's big time
now. Played Fire Emblem Heroes, that was the only other game other than Three Houses. Those were the only 2 Fire Emblem titles that I've brought up on this podcast, which again seems unbelievable to me, seeing as how Fire Emblem Awakening was you know, it's an intelligent systems game, and like I had been, you know, a huge fan of the Advance Wars series and loved the way that they handled strategy. And by the time that I got to Fire Emblem Awakening, I was like, all right, I'll give this one a shot. It's been getting good reviews. This is, I love playing on my 3DS. It's probably my most played system at the time. And then as soon as I loaded that game up, I basically did not stop playing it until I beat it, because it is just everything that I wanted. It had characters that you really cared about, a diverse cast that, you know, each time that you interact with them the first time, there's a little submission where you get them to join. And that was in like the GameCube games and all the other games before, where it's like, oh, here's a character, the new character on like the other side of the map, and you either have to fight your way over there or do something within the mission to recruit them to your party. But like, this was the first game where I was like, I kind of hungry for that, where it's like, oh God, I need to do every single mission and get every item and every character. And then there was rewards for that, like their relationships that you would get between characters. And Awakening introduced a weird mechanic that has kind of been an interesting staple of the series since then, where characters would get married and then have kids, but then they would have to do some weird time travel bullshit to have their kids also be able to be playable characters.
Oh yeah, they need to be warriors, of course.
Yes, so like they would fall through a rift in time, and like based on who the two parents were would be who you would get as their child. And like there's like based on, oh well, I had an archer and a mage who were the parents, and so like this is the substats that they have because they were the like, and there was just so many combinations and so many interactions between every character that like like the first playthrough I did, I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to do whoever I feel is the correct, like what feels right narratively for in terms of matching up characters. And then the second time I went through it, I was like, all right, well, this character actually has like they build a relationship with this other character faster than any other characters. They have like, they require less experience in the relationship. So that's the canonical pair in my mind.
Makes sense.
So I went through and did all of that, and like it's not, I wouldn't say it's an infinitely replayable game, but it is an infinitely replayable game if you're me and this is the type of RPG that you like. And like I just kept going, like leveling up every character and every like different job or class that I wanted to, and it was just such a fun game. And like the story was so engaging, and like the way that you could actually grind if you needed to, because it is a difficult series.
Yeah.
And it introduced like, well, you can go back to earlier areas and like fight these nameless things in addition to the main mission battles. And like I would do that to level up my characters in different jobs, or like the ones that I hadn't used, because in earlier games, like you kind of had to pick a character and only use those characters, because there wasn't enough experience in those games for you to evenly level up every character. Or if you did, then you would just have a team of under-leveled characters by the end game.
No.
So like the ability to actually level up every character and like see the full story for every character was a new, unique thing in the Fire Emblem series, and became how every other game since then has functioned. And it's Fire Emblem Awakening, like I've liked Three Houses. I think it's a very good game. I have not beaten that game, and it's been 3 or 4 years since that game came out. And Fire Emblem Awakening I beat like 3 or 4 times. So
damn,
there's just something about it.
Is that where you would recommend, like, if somebody was just totally new to the Fire Emblem series and like coming into it fresh, barring, I have no idea how like pricey it is as a 3DS cartridge these days or whatever.
I don't know.
Assuming it's like within reach, or just like an ideal circumstances, is that what you would say? Like, hey, this is the Fire Emblem I would start with if you're interested in the series. Like, would you go that far, or is it just the one that clicked with you? Yeah.
I think like it is also just the most entry level friendly, because it also introduced, I think for the first time, different difficulty modes where there wasn't permadeath.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. Yeah, I was like, is this the one that did that? I knew it was one of the handheld ones.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think I
yes.
ever played on easy, but I think I played on normal and hard. And like, again, but just by having like random encounters that you could level up characters, that basically eliminated, and like I still had permadeath in all of my things, and I was
Okay.
like, all right, I need to just be more careful when I engage things. I'm not going to be reckless, or like,
Yep.
oh, I know at this point in this battle, like there's going to be a flank coming from the behind, like midway through, so I can't just leave all my weak characters in like the back lines because I know they'll be targeted. Like, I think it is the best Fire Emblem game in the entire series. And
Damn. Did you still allow yourself to lose characters along the way? Or
absolutely not.
Damn, that's
I love
impressive.
every character way too much. I have
Yeah,
so
it
much
is tough
emotional
because they have stories. They are characters. Like
they have
aren't
stories,
just
and, and they have kids.
yeah, right, exactly.
But it is totally different than like just firing up like a roguelike or something like XCOM or something, you know, where you like technically you can have attachments to your characters, but you do kind of like it's totally different than like I'm playing through a full blown like, you know, almost JRPG scale campaign here.
Yeah. And just that little bit of like leeway in terms of like letting you like even use like underleveled characters, because I remember like in the original or in the GameCube game, I don't remember if it was Radiant Dawn or Path of Radiance. I forget which one was first.
Path of Radiance.
Yeah,
I think you're right. Yeah,
but for that one, I remember there were 3 brother characters, and like the youngest brother character died in like 5 missions in, and I was like, I can't use any of the brothers because their youngest brother died. That's so mean.
It's traumatic.
So like it's an incredible game, and I honestly when I was thinking about what game to bring, I'm like, I should just replay this game again.
I played like a third of this game and I stopped for no good reason, of course, like I do with a lot of games, especially during this time period back in like 2013. Is this the Fire Emblem with the farm kid with the tail on his head?
Donald, who starts underleveled, but his ability, like his innate ability, lets him randomly level up more stats than any other character.
Yeah.
So he can become the strongest character in the game.
Yes.
Oh, what a perfect character! What a perfect game.
Yes.
that's amazing.
Oh man,
He has a pail on his head.
I gotta do some catching up, but I gotta catch up on that Advance Wars that you let me borrow, which I'm literally stare at it every time that we're recording. I'm like looking right at it. But anyways, why don't we toss it over to Randall? I'm glad I didn't steal your thunder for some reason I was just like, I think we're gonna pull out of the same hat here. But yeah, what do you got for something that we haven't talked about yet on the podcast, Randall?
Kevin, I knew we weren't going to pull out of the same hat here.
I
Even
didn't-
though this is a game that, again, like your game, we have played cooperatively and have beaten while hanging out. And this is a game that I'm like, am I sure that I haven't brought this up in some context on the podcast? And maybe I have in passing when I've been talking about other games in this genre, but no, the spreadsheet says I haven't, and I trust the spreadsheet.
Yeah, John, we said it
We
before.
are putting
John
a
is
lot
litigious.
of faith in my ability to like listen to our episodes and be like, we talked about that enough.
Let's put it this way. There's stuff on the list where I'm like, I do not remember ever talking about that game on the list. So I'm like, if John's being that thorough, I feel like he's covering the bases.
Yes. So my game is Die Hard Arcade, which is
yes,
a 3D beat 'em up on the Sega Saturn circa 1997.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Also called Dynamite Deca in Japan, where it did not have the Die Hard license. And this will become obvious that they didn't need the Die Hard license because it was basically like thrown on top at the end in a very cynical ploy to get the Americans to purchase the game because the character Sort of resembles John McClane from Die Hard, but not even really that much.
Yeah, not even really. Although, to be fair, I've actually never seen Die Hard, so I don't know. But it doesn't look like Bruce Willis.
Yeah, I've only seen Die Hard in the last like few years, so yeah, I'm not that far behind you there. It's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Die Hard Arcade. It's easily my favorite 3D beat 'em up, which, there aren't a lot of good ones there, so I guess that's easy to say. But
yeah,
it's very extremely 90s arcade style. It just, this is like Sega and Fox Interactive developing this, and it's just dumb fun. To me, like, this hits a lot of my buttons. It's probably my most played Sega Saturn game, just because this is a beat 'em up. I love beat 'em ups. I've talked about plenty of beat 'em ups on this podcast. This is a beat 'em up that I can easily beat, and I would not play this by myself through necessarily, but cooperatively, it's a blast. You can play through it in under an hour easily.
It's short and sweet.
Yeah, and it's just like the mechanics feel really good. It's even though it's 3D, it's, the perspective is still more like a 2D beat 'em up, where it's that side perspective view. Every once in a while, it'll kind of the camera will go a little more like isometric or top down, but generally, you're kind of moving left to right, but there's like that plane of moving.
Yeah, like the Battletoads plane, or just like you said, like pretty much every beat 'em, Streets of Rage, Turtles in Time, whatever.
Yep. And you have your punch, kick, jump buttons, but you can also like grapple enemies and throw them into other enemies. But it has kind of like a Virtua Fighter type of feel to like throwing enemies or like kicking them up in the air. It has like a little bit of extra floatiness to it in a way where you can combo them or like throw them up in the air, and then like your co-op partner can like throw a weapon at them or like hit them with the flamethrower or whatever else, and that stuff's really fun. If the enemies are on the ground, because John McClane is technically a cop, you can quote unquote arrest enemies like while they're on the ground, like cuff them and then they die. It's not the easiest thing.
I don't remember that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but it's a thing that can happen.
That's incredible. Yeah.
The weapon pickups are just like zany and awesome. There's like,
that's the main thing I remember.
Oh yeah. Like anti-tank rifles, these huge rifles that you can pick up that just like blast enemies across the screen. Like axes, golf clubs, flamethrowers, like the leg off of a robot that you're fighting that you can then like swing around over your head, and like it's just really fun.
It's almost got like a Power Stone vibe to like the combat, or even a little bit like the old like wrestling games, like the Nintendo 64 wrestling games, like the grappling and stuff.
No wonder I like it. Yes, all of those. I love all of those games. So
No Mercy, I think, was your anniversary one last time. If I was recalling,
it's too bad that I already did it, because I would do it again. Yeah, I love that game.
That's so funny. I never thought, even when you said Virtua Fighter, because as soon as you started talking about it, I started thinking wrestling. I was like, hey, even that's a great comparison, because you are kind of like shuffling a little bit, like the way your character kind of shuffles around side to side, and there's even like the little quick time events between like that kind of transition between, like, instead of you just going through a doorway and ending up in the next area, it's like you go down an elevator and you bust out of it, and you're like running out of it because it's on fire or something. And then you got to do like a couple dive out of the way.
Pick a direction or hit your punch button or kick button like in that brief instance that you have. And I know some people don't like quick time events, but it's fun. Yeah,
yeah, and especially like they feel a little more out of place in like Resident Evil 4 or something, but like they don't feel so out of place in like a button mashing arcade game where it's just like, oh, I just get to watch a cool cutscene and either watch me like sock this guy in the face while I run by, or get tripped up as I run by because they got the jump on me or whatever.
Yeah, you sock them in the face. Fun. You're successful. You sock them in the face, and then you watch a replay of you socking them in the face in slow motion again.
Yeah,
and then you go to the next level area, and it's really good.
It also,
it's almost like. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like it is kind of like an underserved like area or genre of like 3D beat 'em ups, because like beat 'em ups I are kind of 3D in that like isometric view, but like an actual like polygon based like 3D beat 'em up. I'm like, I can't honestly think of any other title. Like all the other ones I'm thinking of are like, okay, well, there's Virtua Fighter or like Tekken or like other 3D fighting games,
right?
Not really like level based platforming games.
It's true, and in this game kind of has some of the feel of those games in the fighting, but yeah, this is like just throwing enemies and zany weapons at you, and you're in this kind of like room by room, screen by screen thing. And yeah, it's kind of sad that there weren't more 3D beat 'em ups, but I think that was also a casualty of the industry at the time. Like when this game came out, it wasn't popular to make beat 'em ups anymore. Like 2D was out. 3D was in, and everyone wanted to play, like, or at least people thought everyone wanted to play, developers and publishers thought people wanted to play 3D adventure games or platformers, first-person shooters.
But, like, it's such, like, a good idea. Like, I'm looking at, like, screenshots of this, and I'm like, this looks fun as hell.
Oh,
like,
it's so, fantastic. Like, colorful and chunky. It's almost got, like, voxel art style, but, like, before voxels. But it's, like, the way it's, like, so boxy and chunky.
Yeah.
Like, it's very... It's partly the limitations, but it's like they leaned into it in a way that like really enhances the style of the game, I think.
And they certainly leaned into it with like the cutscenes are very funny, corny, but they kind of know what they're getting into there. Like this game does not take itself seriously. Yes.
It's like, give me that cheesy like punchline, you know, it's like, it's exactly that. And like, it's so cliche in every way, but like, because it leans into it, it's like, it gets like bonus points for it. Yeah. Yeah. And especially it's again, just like Goof Troop, it's like ideal to just play with a buddy, even more so with this one. Cause beat 'em ups aren't the ideal genre for playing solo. And talking about 3D beat 'em ups, the only thing I can like think of even close in recent years are like the X-Men Legends games or like those Marvel Ultimate Alliance games. Like they're a little more RPG and like Diablo-ish where you're like, you're getting upgrades and moves, but they still feel like kind of like top-down 3D beat-em-ups, but I guess they're more just like top-down games.
See, the thing that I was thinking, like immediately, like I felt like kind of Platinum Games was the like successor to that. Where I'm thinking of like Bayonetta or Beautiful Joe, and they're not really the same genre. Like because Beautiful Joe is a platformer, but like that, like I don't know, level-based combat and the heavy emphasis on combos and like just getting to the end of the scene and then moving forward. I'm like, that's
and it kind of walls you off, and then it's like go.
Decent amount of DNA into Beautiful Joe, and also similarly, Beautiful Joe was a very bold thing to make that game in that era. Like,
but it's still true. Like. It's still
awesome
just like a platformer, and then with Bayonetta too, like it's just like, you know, what do you even call Bayonetta? What is Bayonetta?
I mean, it's just kind of an arcade action game. Like it's like
it is. Yes,
whatever you call
action.
Devil May Cry and God of War, like that. Not the new one, but the PS2 era God of War games. Like it's in that family, kind of.
Yeah, but like, what is that genre called? Like other than just arcade action.
Like action adventure. But like sounds so generic.
But the like. I guess when you have platformer as like a vocabulary for Beautiful Joe, but like beat 'em ups are like so evocative of that isometric 3D space that is still a like predominantly like a same platformer like progression, but you do just have that little bit of sandbox, but it's just enough. Whereas like with Bayonetta, like it's like, okay, well this is still like a 3D world, and like I kind of wish that there were more beat 'em up like perspective games, like even if it was just like because like if you like think about 3D Land or 3D World for Mario, like it is kind of in the same way where it's like a fixed perspective.
Yes,
like,
even Kirby. We just talked about Kirby.
Yes,
exactly. Same way. Like every little sequence is like, hey, here's like this blocked out area for this.
I love that about all of those games in the exact same way.
Same.
I wish that was like a more common thing, like a fixed perspective, like 3D, like. It weirdly, for me, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but it weirdly makes the games more replayable for me because I'm like bound to like I'm not sitting around like looking for. I think I'm sure I've said this on the podcast before, but one of the things that like got me away from going for 100% every game was in Uncharted 2. Like there were like all these hidden medallions and coins everywhere. And in Uncharted 1,
they were at, like, you could see a little glint. It would just be like this
Yeah.
little tiny like white flash in like the grass or something. In Uncharted 2, there was a moment I like saw one up in like the top of a tree, and you literally had to like shoot it out of a tree to get. I was like, fuck this. Like, I just
While
don't care enough to
Sully's
find
trying
all
to
these.
talk to you in the cut,
Scripting?
yeah, like and tell you
Yeah.
story things, and you're just running around like an idiot in all the corners of the level area, and
Yeah, just
shooting
like
up in
whipping the
trees and-
camera around, getting motion sickness, and it's just like, oh, this is so annoying. But like with Mario 3D World, I know like, okay, there's 3 hidden coins on this stage. I know I found the first one and the third one, so the second one's somewhere between those two.
Yep.
I have to scour that chunk of the level, and that's it. And
it's
you just kind
streamlined.
of like break it up. Yeah.
Yeah, like scripting the camera makes it a little bit easier than like he was like, okay, well, it's all up to the player. Like they can do anything. Like no, like
Right.
removing that level of randomness, like and just being like, nope, it's going to be along this path.
You're
It's
gonna
not-
go this way.
It's not
Yeah.
on rails like other arcade games can be, but it is like you still have the freedom of movement of character, but you don't have the freedom of movement of camera.
You're
It's
on
just adding that
you're on
layer.
bumpers
it,
instead of rails.
Yeah, it is, and it just adds that layer of direction, and like everything is just crafted within that that direction that's been developed, and yeah, you don't have to touch every nook and cranny because you're being directed along this path. But yeah, you have some level of freedom because it's 3D too. It just like that hits a sweet spot for me.
God.
Yeah, and not to just to bring it back a little bit to Die Hard Arcade too. I think what makes that game a little extra special is all the different like just weapons and pickups, and when you're playing with a buddy, like because I think there even is friendly fire, so you're like, oh, you're blasting your partner with the rocket launcher across the room while you're trying to run into the elevator. It's just such a silly game, like you said, Randall. Like it's just so much good fun. And because it's like an earlier game, like even though it's a violent game, if you will, like obviously you're just blowing people away and killing people left and right, but because it's not realistic, it's just like very cartoony and over the top
very
in 80s, like
abstracted, the violence that way, and
you're,
even if you
Yeah.
kill your friend or you die too many times, that's why you play the 1979 arcade game Deep Scan before you start, and you get as many credits as you can. Where you are this is a Sega developed game, and it's literally a mini game packaged in with the Saturn release of Die Hard Arcade.
nice.
Yeah, where you play as a battleship on top of the water, and you can only scroll left and right, and you drop mines onto the submarines below, and after you get enough points and you get extra lives, you build up extra lives for your playthrough of Die Hard Arcade with your buddy.
What on
That sounds
earth?
like how I beat Ikaruga with a buddy, because apparently on the GameCube version, like no matter how if you kept playing and starting new games, like for every half hour that the game was on, you would just get extra credits for starting the game. So like by the time that we beat the game, I think we had like 12 credits or
That's
8
hilarious.
credits, some like ridiculous. And maybe it wasn't a half. I forget what the increment was, but there was clearly like based on the timer on the GameCube. Because we would sleep and leave it on overnight and be like, I wonder how many credits we'll have in the morning.
So you're talking about how when my friend and I unlocked, I think, Mewtwo in Super Smash Brothers
Oh my
Melee
God.
by
Yep.
putting it on, like, because you could do it after you had so many hours of multiplayer logged,
Yep.
and we put
Yep.
it on with all the controllers plugged in, because also it was by person, so you had 4 times the amount of time
Oh,
lapse.
nice.
And we went trick-or-treating because we were
Yes.
Oh,
children.
that's fantastic.
That's amazing.
What a time.
That's amazing.
That's great. That's wonderful.
I love it. I love it. So many good gaming memories.
Good Lord.
Yeah,
And that's
Die
the
Hard Arcade
anniversary
is certainly one of
that-
them. Have you
Yeah. This
is why we
have
bring
you
up-
played Die Hard Arcade in the arcades? Did it ever come to arcades?
Yeah, it was in the
America, or-
arcade first.
I almost feel like that's where I played it initially, and then I was like kind of like I knew it was on Saturn, and then kind of forgot. And then I don't know if you picked that up one of the days when we were out like collecting and on the hunt, or
Could have.
if you already had it. I don't remember, but yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely remember playing through that one and just being like, this game is amazing,
It
and the fact
rules.
that you can own it in your house is awesome.
Yeah, and it's a great translation from what
Yeah.
I definitely haven't played it in the arcade, but like it's what all the reviews said, and I
It
feel
feels like an arcade game.
Yes.
Like you feel like you're truly playing an arcade game, which it's very obvious when it is a dumbed down version of an arcade game. I feel
Right.
when you're playing one.
Yep.
I've also heard so many more Sega Saturn games than I've ever heard of before because of you specifically, Randall.
I was gonna say, don't give it to
how
me. Yeah.
On earth are there so many
Hey,
Sega
we're-
Saturn games?
We're not done yet, buddy. We're not done
I
yet.
There's
know.
some gems, and
You still got your resolution game.
That's right.
Yeah. I was going to say we still got all ours, but no, John's already taken care of his.
Nice work.
But yeah, I think we can probably wrap up the anniversary chat there for the most part. I did want to give a quick shout out as well to we're doing our 3 year anniversary. We're doing our very first of what will hopefully be, I'm not going to make any promises, but hopefully an annual game jam. We've talked about so many game jams over the years on the podcast, whether it was the Game Maker's Toolkit or Ludum Dar, and found so many, like whether it's Cultisti or Matt Ugg or Daniel Linson. Some of these people I found just through digging on itch.io, not necessarily through a game jam, but like a lot of them I have, and like it's just been so cool to see like so many games that have like been a small idea in a game jam, and then oh wait, after a year or two more of work, they turned it into a full retail game on the Switch or what. Like it's just been so cool to see, and at least for me, it feels like that's like such a big part of like what has driven my passion for doing this Pursuing Pixel stuff, especially for the videos and stuff on the YouTube channel, like finding these little hidden gems on and these little smaller games. So I figured, why don't we host a game jam? And as of right now, the game jam, we're calling it the Pursuing Pixels James Jam Game Gam. I keep keep like struggling. I keep forgetting if it's Game Gam or James Jam first or second. But yeah, we had to squeeze in as much alliteration as possible and as much ridiculousness as possible. But we've already got a little less than 2 weeks to sign up as of the time of recording this, but there's over 75 people signed up, which to be honest, awesome. I was like, if we get 10 or more, I'm going to be pumped. So I'm awesome. Like through the moon right now with how many people we have. So I'm really pumped to see what people whip up. I'm going to do a live stream. Obviously, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play all 75 games, but I'm definitely going to, if some of my standout favorites, make some YouTube videos for those. Like I'm really excited to see what people can do. I know we've got some super talented folks signed up for the jam, so definitely stay tuned. I'm sure I'll at least maybe talk about some of the winners or some of my favorites even on the podcast here.
Absolutely.
Whether it's in a save it for the cast or whatever, and maybe I'll even rope you guys. I know you guys don't have the best PC setup for. I made the rules pretty much. I made the rules
this. Like I'll absolutely play through them.
Heck yeah, I tried to make try to make the games playable on either Windows or browser, ideally, just so that more people will play them. And so that's the limitations that we have. But yeah, we're trying to keep the rules pretty lax. I know like sometimes the jams are like only people who make games can vote. It's like I want people to connect over these games. So hopefully the people who play them can vote, trying to open it up and whatnot. But yeah, we'll have links to that in the episode description. But I'm really, really pumped for that. We'll keep you updated here on the podcast and elsewhere. And I guess in that regard, or on that note, we're elsewhere on the internet, pursuingpixels.com. We're pretty much on every platform you can imagine these days. We're even on TikTok. I made a freaking TikTok. And I'm not super regular about, but I'll schedule a few posts for a week and then I won't do it for 5 days. I'm very, very irregular about it at the moment, but eventually I'll get there. If Twitter totally tanks, I'll get there. But yeah, I think on that note, we can wrap it up there and put another year in the books. It's been awesome doing this with you guys, and thanks for everyone for listening along, tuning in and whatnot. And we will catch you next week, next year, and next whenever. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
I'll tell you guys what my backup game for today was which was actually originally my first game that I had in mind. And then I was like, it's going to be my backup game, and I'll go with Goof Troop and, hope that Randall doesn't lean into that one. And Klonoa 2 was going to be my pick. And then that's when I was like, okay, so I was like, if we end up going a little short, maybe I'll end up asking, what game are you guys most excited about that hasn't come out yet as of the time of recording? And I was gonna use Klonoa 2 as because I was like, they're coming out with that Klonoa collection on Switch, and I know I'm looking forward to that for sure. But honestly, in particular for me,
nothing.
For me, if Mario Golf would have been good, I would be like out of my mind pumped for Strikers. I'm very cautiously pumped for Strikers.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still excited about it, but I'm very cautious.
Hey, they got next level games involved, so
I would be out of my mind.
I know.
If Mario Golf would have been a winner, my excitement wouldn't even be able to be tampered right now. But I'm just kind of like, I hope it's good.
So, like, when we replayed Aces recently, it was so good. Like, that was such amazing. A good multiplayer game.
Which one was Aces? What platform?
Tennis, the Switch tennis game.
Switch. Okay. Yeah. That is good.
That game's incredible. That's one of the best Mario sports games, period.
Yes.
It's a little bit like the adventure mode kind of stinks.
Right. No, that's the thing. Like the single player sucks, but
The gameplay
multiplayer,
is
it's
good,
incredible.
though. Yeah.
And the multiplayer, like I think we talked about this at Mikey's too, is like once if you play somebody that's too evenly matched to you,
It never ends.
it's a
Endless.
little broken because it's just like who's gonna like literally whiff a button press for
But
you.
also
Not
that
even who's
kind of
better at the
rules
game.
when we were playing that one where it was just us trading like.
Well,
point after point.
you at the net were like a monster on
That's
some
the
of those
only
points.
thing I could do. I couldn't do shit otherwise. I was
It's
the weakest
hard.
link. I had the least wins.
It's hard because like I always play in the mindset, especially coming from somebody that I played tennis doubles like in high school or whatever.
Yeah.
So like I always played front and back is like kind of the way that we would play, and you would just kind of trade sides
Right.
based on like how the play played out. But like Mikey and John and everybody were like, "Hey, I play better just left and right. Let's keep sides." And I'm just like, "Oh man, like I can't wrap my brain around playing like this." Like I kept just trying to like when you're in the back, you just think I can cover more ground in the back, so I should be running back and forth.
Right.
But yeah, I did forget how good that game was.
It is. It's really good.
Such a good game.
And so good looking too. Like,
Yeah.
that's one thing I'm excited about because even Strikers on the freaking GameCube still looks pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Let alone the Wii. The Wii version looks amazing. So I'm sure the Switch version is going to look nice,
Force that
except for
progressive
those
scan.
half frame crowd animations that I'm sure they're going to have in the background.
You're not looking at those anyway.